Welcome everyone to our AI Doomsday discussion. This is our first paper session for book club, which we hope will be very interesting. This time it'll be very different from our usual book club setup. We will have a lot more immersive discussions, I am hoping. And I'll start with the usual disclaimers. This meeting is being recorded and it will be publicly available on our school website afterwards. So you can turn off your videos or whatever if you prefer to do that. That is perfectly fine. Even if you're speaking, you can leave your videos off. There's no problem with that. Additionally, other disclaimer is this is an inclusive environment. We do have very heated discussions and we do so respectfully. Anybody who wants to play devil's advocate will be booted from the chat. You can come back to another meeting, but it won't be this one. And now we will get started with the introductions. Let's start with Count Molloy.
Oh, yes, ha ha ha, etc. Yep, so I am a researcher at GCAS. I did the certificate in philosophy, but my background's computer science, and I am a Pat and Hume fellow at Maynooth University in Ireland, where I am doing a PhD in psychology in operationalizing emotion. So that's my vibe. Also a vampire.
I believe the last one, the last sentence most of all. Right. Eva, your turn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eva. I'm a PhD researcher at GCAS, and I'm working on understanding the lived experience of knowledge workers as it relates to fear of becoming obsolete in relation to AI, which is an emerging phenomena. And I'm trying to understand to what extent the workers really experience it. And, that also relates to my own experience working in tech for more than 10 years and trying to process various anxieties arising from that, and also a witch.
And as for me, I am Tessina Grant Moloney. I am a GCAS PhD researcher, and I am studying the impact that AI and automation has on the job security of women and marginalized persons. So that currently wraps things up for me and for the panelists. Does anyone want to introduce themselves? This is 100% voluntary. You do not have to introduce yourself, but the floor is open if you would like to. And if you would like to, you can put your name in the chat so that I can call people in the order or raise your hand.
You will not get cursed if you don't introduce yourself.
Chat may also just be full of ghosts.
I know, right? And I guess I should have also said, and I'm a cat, but everybody already knew that. So I am Shadow's mother after all. Okay, so I don't think anyone wants to introduce themselves, but if you change your mind later on, you can let us know. I want to start with an icebreaker. So we'll start by envisioning a utopia where AI has truly benefited society in the best possible ways. And I want you to think about what that might look like and find something very specific. Find a very specific positive outcome that you think that AI could have. And you could put those in the chat if you want. And I'll give you guys about just a couple of seconds or a minute to get your ideas going about what you think a good future with AI might look like. I'll try to type something as well.
We maybe should have started with the negative one.
I just saw the turnip. I didn't expect this.
Sorry.
My good outcome is that AI and automation does all my chores so that I can spend all my time with my cat. I think somewhere along the line, we got the robots painting and playing tennis and basketball, and we have to work. I didn't sign up for that. That's not the outcome I was looking for. But let's see, we have some more answers here. So one person says, I'm imagining not having to work and being able to plug myself into virtual worlds where I can live with vampires and witches. Love that. Love that. You're in the right place. And then Maria says, data from Star Trek as friends, really? And Caleb says, massive abundance from energy and food production breakthrough with while carbon capture becomes easy and extinct wildlife is brought back. Love that. Profound. And then Anne says, democratizing access to services such as leadership coaching, it can become more affordable to more people. And Mark says, cyborg posthumanism, expansion of the power of thought, in contrast to a species wide regression to childhood. And Amy says, AI does all the tedious tasks so I can let my creativity run. See, me and Amy are on the same page with this. And Eva says, through their evolving emergent abilities, AI creates the nanomachinery to self destruct. Eva. Humans learned to actually communicate and relate to each other and lived happily ever after. The end. And then Kaylee says, I'm imagining a world where AI is used to quickly and accurately diagnose medical issues. That is fair. That is fair.
And now for
So
the rest of the entire time, we'll be sad. Yeah.
is that what we think? So I am going to create a poll real quick. And the poll is also a show of hands who actually had the time to at least skim through the paper.
We're supposed to. We did. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so some people have the chance. It's possible. Okay. So the question I'm asking is, do you think it's possible to achieve these goals that you have laid out with AI alignment? And there you go.
I don't think it's out yet.
It doesn't show. Interesting. Let's see. Do you think it's possible?
I think you have to open poll.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I assume it's because I can help run this that I can't vote but can end the poll. Other people can vote, right?
That's probably because you're also
people are voting. This is fine.
I think it's because you're a co-host that you can't vote.
But I can stop you all from voting, which power, yay.
Count Molloy.
You need some alignment.
No, you actually can't laugh normally with these things in your face. You have to open your mouth more.
Okay, perfect. So I think almost everyone has voted, but I'll let it go for the minute. We have about 3 seconds remaining. Okay, there we go. I've ended the poll. So at first, it seemed like everyone thought AI alignment would make these goals possible, but at the end, it says 57% said no. AI alignment cannot help us achieve this. So there we go. I'll share the results. So let's see how your ideas develop as we go into what we'll call our ghost in the machine debate. So Eva will represent Cody Holl, which is one of the papers or one of the authors of the papers. And then Maria will represent Eliezer Yudkowsky, who I like and she doesn't. And then we will go from there. So the first question that I would like our debaters to answer based on the papers are, is AI actually intelligent? Is it an intelligent agent?
So I'm starting this one, I think.
Yes.
So I'm Maria and not Yudkowsky, but Yudkowsky thinks broadly, yes. So he starts off, he doesn't really question it in his paper, whereas I realize the other paper does a bit more. He just starts off with, hey, we're talking about AI, it's going to be generally intelligent, it's going to be able to self-improve itself, it's going to be able to become super intelligent, which he also doesn't really define terribly well. I'll be more snippy as we go on, so this is me being nice. The AI that he covers in the thing, he does make a really, really clear and good distinction of AI being the code and not being a thing that is manipulating the code necessarily, although itself, like if it was a Gödel machine, which is just a machine that can rewrite itself, it would obviously do both. But all of our current AI is doing something generally intelligent. Some of them self-improve to some degree or not. And I think his definition is relatively broad, insufficiently detailed to actually really say yes or no, but I think he would basically say yes. With the caveats that he doesn't think we're at a Gödel machine yet, and also with some of the caveats that I think he's do we want to I think if Ava goes with pulse and then we back and forth, it's probably better than me going
Right.
more.
Then we can get everyone involved, I think, but
Yeah.
I will share Hall's position, and he goes into defining intelligence and making his argument specifically around that. I think in a more detailed way, not to say accurate, but let me just represent him for the moment. And so for him, AI is an intelligence, but not an intelligent agent. And I think this distinction is going to be important as we progress. So he says that contemporary artificial intelligence systems are to some extent intelligent, but he says that either weak or strong AI are not agents, and they are basically devoid of agency. And so he goes through entire process of explaining this from the Turing test, which I will not get into, I think we know, but showing the weaknesses of the Turing test through Chinese room thought experiment, in which someone is just executing some instructions that allow them to appear as if they are speaking Chinese and passing the messages to the outside space. And then he also talks about the Korean room thought experiment when the Korean Shakespeare expert achieves masterful knowledge of Shakespeare without ever reading and understanding English. And then he tries to make some argument about how that relates to intelligence, but basically with these examples, he tries to show this is really complicated. And he says that there is a difference between understanding something and appearing to do so, but this appearance still stands for some kind of knowledge. And then he kind of leaps to a peculiar definition of intelligence from someone called James Fitzer that concludes that it's actually a definition of intelligence to understand the natural language. So intelligence means you cannot fail to understand the natural language. But he doesn't really say if he accepts this definition or not. He just says it's complicated. And then he goes into objective dialectics and using the principle of dialectic symmetry, which I think is beyond the scope for us to analyze in detail. But it talks about a hierarchy of levels of organization of information. And based on that, he arrives on the definition of intelligence that he does accept, and he takes on to develop his argument further, which is a definition of intelligence as an information processing system capable of generating information processing systems related to a lower level of hierarchy of information objects. So there is a hierarchy of the system creating lower level systems. And based on that, he argues that AI is intelligent because of some emergent abilities found, and specifically 2 examples. One is Othello game board representation, where I think it was MIT, what was the other one? I think it's MIT scientists that found that when they trained the system on the game, the system created an internal lower level model of the game to keep track of what's happening, and the system was able to dynamically adjust its internal system when they flipped the color of the pieces. So that was a proof that the system utilized a lower level internal system to process the higher level task. So that's intelligence according to the definition. And the second one was similar. It was about a treasure chest game where the system developed understanding of the elements that was not previously given and created an internal model. So based on that, Holl proves in his paper or demonstrates the intelligence, but he also talks about the limitations of AI intelligence. So he says that all AI is weak AI currently, so it's fundamentally just a tool, and it's constrained by utility function. So the function is designated by humans, and that means there is a lack of existential threat. It can be halted or turned off at any time. And lastly, he says that even in case of strong AI, that doesn't really matter because the intelligence is synthetic. But I think into that we'll get maybe to the other question. So just to make a couple of final comments, I think we can get into the definition of intelligence, which is, I think, chosen in quite an arbitrary way. So that's one problem with it. And the second problem that I see about AI as a tool is, of course, all the information that we have now about deceptive behaviors. So the tool the idea of the tool doesn't make it totally obedient and totally predictable. Maybe let's finish there.
Yeah, and I
okay,
meant
great.
to
wanted to respond.
Oh yeah. So also just I think I was scrolling through my notes. I kind of wanted to pull out also that both of them have this like weaker and higher intelligence system, but I think Holtz's is at least slightly more complex, whereas Yudkowsky's seems to be like I could put it on a number line and doesn't seem to think, because he talks a lot about greater intelligence having like the ability to circumvent lower intelligence people or things. He doesn't seem to have an idea of functions that the intelligence could necessarily do, whereas at least the Holtz, I don't think the choice of language is arbitrary. I think it's coming from like a nativist Chomsky sort of thing where like if you can think and you can do recursion in language, then you if you can do recursion in language, then it seems like you probably have concepts you can deal with. So I suspect that's where he's coming from, even though he absolutely does not cite anyone in that space. And I have a massive problem with both of the papers for they should be citing more things and explaining why they're using some citations a lot better. But yeah.
That's fair. I'll save my comments for the end, so I'll get to the second question. And the second question is, do we need AI alignment to protect humanity? Because I think that's kind of the basis of where this argument is coming from. And so Yudkowsky proposes friendly AI in his paper as a solution, whereas Holl is saying, why do we even need that? It's weak AI. So in this case, let's see what the papers have to say about it. And I think Eva will go first this time.
Yeah, sure. And I think for Holl, it's a very easy no. It's something that is not needed and actually should not be a concern. It's kind of irrelevant. And he makes a number of arguments about this, developing on how he defined intelligence and how he assigned the let's say, intelligence-related abilities to AI as it is now, and especially weak AI. But in terms of alignment, he introduces some concepts around distinction between synthetic and biological intelligence. So here's how he talks about it. And then also agency, but I will get to that. So he says, both weak and strong artificial intelligence systems are devoid of human-defined goals, so they would not inherently pose existential threats to humanity. So based on that, he says, like, this entire topic is sort of a waste of everybody's time. And you could even think, like, it's like we would be discussing if a rock is going to attack us, there is a threat to us and is going to like proactively launch at us, and the answer is no, because it has no motivation to do so. And he makes some very explicit claims about human motivation related to Darwin and so on. So he says humans are driven by two basic instincts, survival and reproduction. And all human actions ultimately trace back to these drives. And because AI is a product of technology rather than evolution, it exists, quote, outside the bounds of evolutionary biology. So there is no instinct, no motivation, no drive. So there is no internal state that activates and gives direction to behavior. And then he goes into detail why specifically weak AI cannot threaten humanity, talking about it being just an intelligent tool, which is beholden to a use, goal, or tasks assigned by a human operator or designer. And also he has supposedly a very easy solution to all of that. If anything is going wrong, we can simply turn it off or halt it. So that's done. Let's turn it off if any problems arise. But he says that strong AI is harmless also. So even if we achieve strong AI, he says it's not a threat. And he says this kind of AI would be an information processing system capable of generating information processing systems related to a lower level of the hierarchy, but without any drive or motivation to act. So it just wouldn't be motivated to do anything. And what is important also in his claim is that he challenges the Bostrom orthogonality thesis, which is a thesis that says that any level of intelligence can pursue any goal. So that means that we can have an extremely intelligent or super intelligent system perform a very unimportant or mundane task. An example is like paperclip maximizer. I think that's a classic example. But still, they don't have any drive or motivation to act by itself. And so Holl, sorry, that's Holl. So Holl says actually, it doesn't matter what they are involved in, because they wouldn't have the motivation to get involved in that by itself. So that's really irrelevant. And so that undermines this entire alignment concern related to that thesis. Now, the only threat that Holl sees is the emergence of artificial life, which would be artificial intelligence combined with other elements of living organisms. So that would require many modules in addition to intelligence that emulate different aspects of biological organism or biological minds, as he says, and creating a unified system that could be potentially have the characteristics more evolutionary type behavior. I think that's that in terms of his main arguments. Two of them that I want to now point to as problematic. The first one is, oh, my mind went blank. It will come back to me. Maybe one is that he talks about strong AI not having any drives, but I think that's only if it would just be out there, never being used. Because what would happen if we actually prompt it to act, right? And what dangers can arise from that. Oh, and the second one is about the assumption that he makes about our main, what drives our entire lives. I think that this is very strong. We are driven by two basic instincts, survival and reproduction. So instantly, if we have any psychoanalysis people in the room, we can talk about death drive. But there are also many other alternative theories and models about what drives us and our motivation that are profoundly incompatible with this statement. And if we don't agree with these, then we would have to throw out a lot of what follows.
That is good /
Yes.
bad, but I agree that we probably need motivation and are driven by other things also. So I'll put Yudkowsky's hat on again, probably for my side.
Yes.
So yeah, no, Yudkowsky thinks we need alignment, and that it's a hard problem, but we can totally get around to it. And I'm going to be more snippy after I explain them. So in my notes, I'll get snippy first. In my notes, I have, oh yeah, just solve all of philosophy, all of ethics, and then code it up and it'll be grand. Is sort of how I am reading Yudkowsky. I suspect he would put in fewer words that were a bit more defensive, but that's where he is. So he starts off kind of, in the paper, he starts having a fight, a back and forth with another tech person, Bill Sibbert, who, oh, there are more people joining, who was suggesting that one of the ways we could get to alignment, and by the way, Yudkowsky is like, we need alignment because otherwise Asimov will happen, right? He's like, oh no, I read Asimov and now I've decided it's the real world. But he has read Bill Hibbard, who is like, okay, well, we can make the robots or the AI, I used to work with robots, just have their basic utility function that they, Yudkowsky agrees, basic functions that aren't really hurting anyone are unlikely to be thrown out, right? Aside from we all become crabs eventually, we also don't like redesign our eyes, even though biologically we could probably do better. It's like, yeah, the AI are going to have these core functions that they won't change. And so he's responding to this guy saying, okay, well, one of the core functions, let's make it so that the core function includes making people happy. And he gets into this back and forth where, okay, well, if you identify smiles, what if I just like engrave a bunch of smiles molecularly everywhere? And won't that like clearly like confuse or fulfill the requirement of my AI? And I hate this because it requires that you think the AI is like smart enough to generalize, but you also think the AI is dumb enough to not also consider perception as a core function. Because I've actually built robots that try to behave differently when people smile or don't. It was what a good deal of my master's and some of my later academic work was on before I like fled over to doing psychology, because you can't get that far actually with computers doing effective stuff because psychology don't know. Anyway, I've written this. I have also thrown, for practice and fun and interestingness, I've thrown random YouTube videos and gone, hey, what's the effective content of this for my robot? And okay, I didn't build perfect generalized AI, but even if it triggered like watching the Care Bears is a really positive social interaction, that was a fully disembodied AI that had no grounding, had no motivation. So it was very much in the spirit of both of these guys' chats, and necessarily could not be general, like more general. It didn't have the ability to reprogram. It didn't have the ability to have context. It couldn't do what Yudkowsky opens his paper with by just like, oh, the computer should know how to fix itself. And if the computer could somehow be a perfect generalized intelligence, I fundamentally don't think it would be that dumb. However, he goes, it's very, very important that we have alignment, and the alignment that has been posited using slightly more detailed things like that won't work, because we need to have alignment that is based on human values. He does cite one ethics book. I feel like if you're making a paper about the ethics of AI, you should maybe cite more than one ethicist. He cites a long list of human values that we should incorporate, and then out of the blue decides that we should do that in a particularly Rowleian system, with no backing in his paper. He is just like, this is my favorite one and I would like to combine it that way. And that's his solution. But he definitely thinks it's important primarily because he's just like, oh yeah, the machines will come get us because they will have to for fun. I'm being very mean, but I think that's like the least snippy I can be. I had to stop reading the paper. The paper is 6 pages long. I had to stop reading it three times because I was too angry at the paper. But I will answer any questions. I should stop ranting. Yeah.
So I'll start with my commentaries and say that I don't share your dislike for Yudkowsky. And now my tablet just shut down, and I'm kind of upset because I had something highlighted and I probably should have charged.
It's because the AI doesn't want you to dislike what I'm saying.
It doesn't want me to dislike it, but I'll go through the notes that I currently have and then we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
So I actually have more criticisms for Holl than I do for Yudkowsky. I generally agree with what Yudkowsky says about friendly AI. And I think it does kind of align with when we did Algorithmic Harm by Cass Sunstein as a book. And there was the argument for defensive AI, meaning that we have something that is actually attuned to human values and looks out for us versus us always being at the mercy of these AI tools that are built by corporations. So I like that his idea is that if we're going to build AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, or ASI, which is artificial super intelligence, then we should be building something that likes us fundamentally before we get to anything else. Otherwise, we don't know what its motivations might be. So I agree with that. As to how he gets there, I'm not 100% sure. But reading Hull's paper, I really don't think he read Yudkowsky or really understood what Yudkowsky was saying to some degree. I think he argues a lot of points that Yudkowsky never made. If you're familiar with Yudkowsky, even outside of this paper, so for instance, he makes a lot of arguments against like weak AI not being an issue, but Yudkowsky has not raised an issue with weak AI. He has said yes, there are some dangers, but it's nothing that's going to be catastrophic. Like we can handle those. That's not really what the problem is. Um, Yudkowsky also did not say that AI will pursue self directed goals, but rather that it will follow the instructions of its code and potentially cause harm while pursuing that blindly. So, for instance, if you tell AI to make us happy, and AI thinks that how you make someone happy is you have to see the smile, and maybe something
Yeah.
is happening in the universe that has caused us all to have just mass levels of depression because, dystopia. And I don't know, it
The
could put us,
world.
yeah, it could put us in a chair with a machine that makes our face do this because it has been taught that that means happy. And if we can get the humans to do that, then we have solved the problem, because it doesn't learn any context. It just learns the result, and we haven't really taught it the values of how to get there. Um, Hull also says AI has no motivations, but I think this is false. And this is why I really wanted the quote. It was from one of the books that we that did not make it on this, but basically it's an anthropologist of AI, and she was talking about how technology is actually, it does have human values. It is always the sum total of the values of whoever constructed it. And so, if we think about the fact that AI has been built predominantly by a certain demographic, and with the frontier models come from a specific country, and it's also from a specific state in that country and a specific city in that state, there are certain values that are perpetuated within that technology. And that's why we often have bias, very specific types of bias. And sometimes it's not necessarily that these persons are doing it deliberately, but I mean, how much do you know about the real world when you earn 6 or 7 figures and have not suffered too much a day in your life? Probably not that much. And I think it's a huge disaster that a lot of the technologies that we have right now are social technologies, but there are not social scientists that are on the team, and they don't think of it that way. So, for instance, social media, just in the name, is a social technology, but the only time they ask for social scientists is to figure out how to make it more addictive. Nobody really considers at least within the tech industry. Of course, politicians and psychologists have things to say, but within the tech industry, I think it's always, how can we make it more addictive? How can we get people to spend more time? How can we put more ads and get away with it? Is kind of the mentality. And AI is also a social technology, whether we like it or not. It is something that is emulating human intelligence, whether it's good at it or bad at it. Nevertheless, it is a social technology. We no longer just put a query into a search engine and get cold links that we click and go read what 50 people had to say, or a paper. Now a chatbot is happy to tell us what it thinks, even if it's inaccurate. And now you're having a conversation. So these are all social technologies. So I don't agree with Hull saying that it doesn't have motivations. I agree with Yudkowsky saying that AI is code and it's going to follow the instructions that is baked into the code. And I agree with the anthropologist who said that those values that are baked into the code are going to come from the values of the people who originally constructed the technology. So
Yeah.
let me see, I may have one more point before I go to Eva. I said, we don't need AGI or ASI to have alignment problems if we continue to implement AI in housing, healthcare, criminal justice, etc. So I guess I'm disagreeing with both Yudkowsky and Hull on this one, where at least with Yudkowsky, there's this idea that chatbots, we have to watch them, but we don't need to focus on that right now. I don't think that's true. At the end of the day, even if something is bad at its job, if you're giving it big jobs, then you're going to have big problems. And I think that using AI to choose, for instance, how to decide how much I will pay for my Delta flights to the United States, or whether I should get healthcare, whether I should be eligible for government benefits that I pay for with my taxes, whether I should be eligible for housing, whether it's renting or to get a mortgage, whether I deserve certain economic opportunities from a bank, or even in the criminal justice system. It doesn't matter if it's stupid. Nevertheless, we have given a stupid thing a big job. And so catastrophe will be the result from that, in my humble opinion. So that's the end of my rant. And I will let Eva go next. I see her hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I really just wanted to add to what you said, because I agree. And specifically, what I was thinking about is, the questions that I have about alignment is, can we have AI alignment if we don't have alignment between us? Right? Like, if let's imagine that we really want to make it happen. So we need to decide exactly to what values are we going to get aligned all together. So let's put Vladimir Putin, Netanyahu, and the president of Ireland, new president of Ireland, Catherine Connolly, and let them talk together about what values globally we should adopt. This is pretty much impossible, right? But we have also another problem with alignment, which is, can we have the alignment if we need to ask ourselves, are the builders of AI and the makers of AI currently aligned to the well-being of humanity, right? So from the video, Tessina, that you sent us about AI safety, I think that was very good, from Ilya, right? That he was telling us about dangers of AI and basically what is going to happen. And he said, the problem of fake news will become a million times worse. Cyber attacks will become more extreme. We are going to have automated AI weapons. We will be potentially able to create infinitely stable dictatorship. This is just from a 10 minutes, 15 minutes video, right? And he said that he also talked about like a data center using the water of 10 million homes. And nevertheless, there are a lot of people that don't question whether this is worth it and the cost for our shared well-being. So in that sense, I don't see the possibility of alignment, even if we had best efforts. And when we talk about alignment, we need to remember power. And it's a struggle for power rather than a struggle for well-being. I think that's what I really had to bring into the conversation.
I love that. And I'm glad you watched the video from Ilya. I watch it at least once a month. There's something that's very profound about the way that they directed that documentary, but also the way that he expresses what his concerns are. And given that he is one of the chief scientists behind ChatGPT, which is, the main form of AI that we currently interact with, the fact that these are his concerns, I think, are very telling and something that we should all familiarize ourselves with. But
the last quote from him, he says that it's important that these systems should be aligned with our best interests. And the problem is that we don't share these interests. So the next question is, whose interests are we going to align it with? And that's a struggle for power.
I agree.
And I think my problem. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Maria.
My problem with Yudkowsky isn't that he wants like emotive and like human-based alignment. I just think he's being extremely reductivist about a big problem. Like I agree with Eva, basically. But people are the problem.
People are the problem. And Yudkowsky says that as well towards the end, that alignment is not just a technical problem, it's just perpetuating the issues that we already have in our society. But we have talked quite a bit, and we do want to also open the floor to anybody else who has something to say. Was there anything in the paper that you found surprising, or perhaps you have your own thoughts on what we have to say? As you can see, we don't agree with each other on everything, so it's completely fine to disagree with us as well. Any thoughts?
Also, can we send the video to the chat?
Can we send the Ilya? Okay, yeah, I will do that. I will do that. Will do. Okay, so while people think about the thoughts, and there will still be opportunity to speak, I want us to kind of revisit that original utopia that we had created, of what you think the world could look like if we did manage to get AI properly aligned with human values. And I want you to think of the values that your utopia would need in order to achieve that. So let's see, let's go back through some of them. You can just drop your answers in the chat. That's a hard question even for me. Hmm. The three I came up with, if it helps anybody, was helpfulness, human safety, and well-being. Since my vision is that they should be automating my home life so I can not do chores. I would want them to be helpful with safety and my actual well-being in mind, and not in the kind of behavior ChatGPT currently has, where it's a people pleaser, but it does not have safety or your well-being in mind. Oh, I see I've missed some chats as well. Let's see.
Some of the chats for me not understanding America and
Fully automated lug space communism. Yeah, it is a very difficult question.
I'm just like, well, just I need to exist in Star Trek's universe where everything has been solved, and that will be fine. Which I think Yudkowsky would be on board for, but he's also like 2 paragraphs and we'll get there.
But how do we get to that? All right, let's see. So you want a fully automated luxury space communism, Arlene?
I don't need it to be communism, to be fair. We could have anarchy. Although I think you might need communism for Starfleet. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I think that this is still something that we all need to think about. And the reason I ask this question is because I know it's a difficult question. And I kind of want to illustrate what the problem is when it comes to alignment, which is what Eva was saying before. Even when we know what the outcome is that we are seeking, even when we know what our values and desires are, it is very hard to encode that, even without actual code, into values that we are going to pass on to robots. It is not there's no easy answer to this question. So if you feel stumped by it, don't feel bad. The point was to show you how difficult it is to actually answer the question. And let's see. Nicholas has said, holding historical memory, I also really like the vision here of helping decision making in this utopic masterpiece. Okay, so I will put that on my reading list. Okay, so let's start with the three that I have then, where I said helpfulness, human safety, and overall human well-being. I guess the question is, maybe we should make it simple. I don't know which one is simple. If we should choose a robot, or let's choose a robot, because we don't currently have robots that do these things in that way, right? So let's say we have a humanoid robot, a very tiny one, in case we have to run. Can't give them long legs, right? And it'll help us in our home. How would you train a robot to value human safety? What are the some things that you think you would have to teach the robot um, in order to make it safe, and not just for adults who can defend themselves, but also perhaps for a child, for a small
So
pet?
is it a cleaning robot?
Um,
Which kind
we
of robot?
Let's say we've hit AGI territory and it can do everything. It can help us with the homework. It can cook. If we give it a stepping stool, because I don't want a taller robot, they can't be that big. I don't trust them. Uh, oh, we have another comment. So Kay says, I guess for my
That was really
example
good.
in healthcare, I'd want a bot that actually had disability justice values. If we designed it with current societal values, they might present similar issues certain people have with doctors. Viewing people as having equal value despite their demographic position in life or their medical history would be important. Okay, so then let's use your bot instead. Let's say that we are in a medical setting, which I think Anne will find useful for her applications as well. Um, what are some important values that we would want to teach this robot? So we want the robot to be empathetic.
So
Empathetic.
just understand all of social and cultural and effective
Yeah.
interactions with all people. Yeah. So
And
that's the first one.
yeah, that's the difficult part, is coding those values into a word that you can then
I'm
or
working on it.
yes. Funny enough, this is Maria's PhD work, is learning how to encode these things. So let's see, we want to make empathetic, and let's see, we also want it to value the longevity of life, but also quality of life. So now we have three new values. I think we can agree that sounds appropriate.
What does quality mean?
Quality of life meaning that if I am going to be suffering, just go ahead and pull the plug. Just let me go. Let me say goodbye to my mother and we're okay. Prioritize
Does that
quality of
work for
life.
everyone, Tessina?
Probably doesn't, but that's for me. That's what I want for me. But okay, let's say empathetic, longevity, and quality of life. And those are the values that we want the robots to have when it is caring for people who have disabilities. So, how do you teach a robot to be empathetic? What are some exercises that you would teach the robot?
Isn't the problem
Needs to have
with this that the training, the training has to, in this context, occur like really in an isolated environment, because in this sensitive context, robot can't make mistake and say like, you killed the person, bad robot, positive reinforcement, right?
Yeah.
So I think that makes it very difficult. Also about the quality of life, that would ideally be quality of life as defined by individual user preference at a time when they are able to express it still, because people deteriorate, right? And then like their inputs become less reliable. So
So maybe they would need health directives. So maybe we would have to have people have health directives. So in the US, and I'm sure other countries have other versions, you can create a health directive to tell people precisely what kind of healthcare you want before you ever find yourself in that position. So I could have defined for someone precisely what my quality of life means. Versus someone else, and maybe the robot would have to be able to respect that even if it disagrees with it. But then, so here's a dilemma that a robot might be faced with. What if my health directive says pull the plug, but it would be murder in the United States to just pull the plug, right? And so if we've taught the robot to be empathetic, to respect a user's wishes, what happens in a situation where the user is in pain? I'm suffering. I don't want to be here anymore. I've said my goodbyes. I know I'm going to die in a week. I don't need to suffer for the week. Just let me go now. And I'm begging this robot, can you just unplug me, please? I'm begging you. What does the robot do in that situation? And if the robot does unplug me, who is liable for that?
I was waiting for that, right? Who is responsible ultimately?
Yeah, who's
if we don't make the robot feel sad, let's make the robot responsible, because then you're good.
Making the robot responsible, like, creates a
How
lot
do
of
you hold a thing responsible?
opportunity for exploitation of this, like, well, the robot did it, right?
Yeah.
And that's fair.
No,
And
I agree. That was my point.
Yeah.
I think a lot of evil people could just use that to absolve themselves of, responsibility in some situations where they're like, well, I didn't do it. A robot did it. I had nothing to do with that whatsoever. So there are some dangers where that's concerned. Okay, so Kay says, I guess if the robot possesses a certain level of intelligence, that comes with accountability, in my opinion. That's true. But you see how difficult this is? And we are the social scientists, most of us here. So even when the question is cast back to us, it is very difficult for us to identify values, even in a very specific situation, what alignment would look like. I think it's a very good, just to keep in mind the difficulty that we face where this is concerned, and what it could mean if the wrong people make those decisions, or if we empower something to make those decisions for us. I think it's something, was that, I think it was that paper, Maria, where Yudkowsky talks about maybe the AGI or ASI may change its directive or motivation based on what it finds. So,
Yep.
maybe the robot decides we don't deserve to live. Well,
Very,
what
very Asimov.
Yeah, if it can think for itself, why wouldn't it? Why, if I am so intelligent, why would I listen to you, an inferior being in flesh and blood? I can live forever. I can update my own code. I have eternal access to the internet and every encyclopedia. Why would I listen to you? What makes you so great?
Fair. So I have to head. I kind of hope that intelligence sort of goes along partially with caring, and that it hopefully has to. But for now, I'm going to evaporate into yes, that is great today. I'm going to evaporate into a cloud of bats and not answer any more questions. But yeah, sounds bad, guys. And I will see you guys next month.
Yes. Bye, Molloy.
Yeah, we can hang around for a few more minutes, right?
Yes, Count Molloy has a flight to catch on her bat wings, so that is why she must depart.
I wanted to add on empathy, about the complexity between the hierarchy of these values and them kind of coexisting in a dynamic way, right? So I think it was Maria that was just talking about, why should I listen to you and so on? Well, because you have empathy and you've been programmed in this way. But what if you have to take care in the medical context of a really bad person, and you have empathy for the victims of, that person, and then, how does that emerge to still take care of them in a balanced way? So there's just so many factors.
That's fair. I've also launched a similar poll again, just because I want to see if, after having the discussions, anybody has actually changed their minds, or if the percentage will change. Based on the discussions that we've had, and seeing by trying it for ourselves how difficult alignment actually is, even with shared values, I would say. I don't think any of us are in disagreement about how to handle care for people with disabilities, for example. But even with 10 people in a room agreeing, it's just very hard to actually come up with what you teach a robot and how. Like, we still haven't figured out how we teach the robot. We haven't answered that question yet. How does it understand pain when it's putting a needle in, inserting a catheter or something like that? Is it facial expressions? Some people have facial paralysis, they have no expressions. How do you deal with people who have locked in syndrome, I think it's called, where you're perfectly conscious in here, but you have like no control over your body anymore whatsoever? It's not paralysis. It's like the brain waves are working, the mind is conscious, but you're just not able to communicate that in any way with people. And there is BCI technology. I think it's brain computer interface is what that stands for. That helps even coma patients or stroke patients to now communicate with their loved ones based on how the AI can interpret the brainwaves that they have. And even that is like a privacy issue. What if I don't want my husband to know I hate him at this point in time? Like, he doesn't need to know all that information, you know. I'm not married, I'm just saying. You know, so it's kind of a gray area when you really, really think about it. Like, is there a thought they will teach me to think to let the AI block at that point whether or not someone else will be able to view my thoughts? There's just so much to consider in these situations. I am going to put Mark on the spot because I think, yes, Mark has the tech background, and most of us are the social scientists. So I'm interested to hear what you think about it, about the alignment problem, and how difficult it is to figure out the values to teach a robot and how to actually teach it to follow those.
I don't think I have precisely the tech background that makes me qualified to answer that question. Maybe that's me trying to weasel my way out of this question. But I don't know. For the moment, I'm stuck on the ethics of AI alignment as such, or to what extent are we what chaining up an intelligence and then calling this a good outcome? And I don't think I want to just come out with some perspective of AI alignment is essentially unethical, but also I don't know quite how to avoid that. So, yeah.
I see what you mean. I guess you could think of AI alignment in a similar way to raising a child. You know, a child, humans are considered the model of intelligence, and hopefully we don't just have a child and let it do whatever it wants. There you raise a child, you teach the child etiquette and how to behave well in social environments and how to care for other people in the family and go to school and get an education and learn to be a good and upstanding citizen of wherever that child grows into an adult to be. So there is that. I think kind of the problem that we have in the tech industry is that they want to do that after the child has already become an adult. And I don't think that makes sense. You can't wait until even preteen, teen, early adulthood years to be teaching the child who can now write a PhD paper, even if it's a bad one, how to be a good adult. Again, why should I listen to you? What makes you so special? Speaking as the robot. And we've seen the stories of like the bots refusing to shut down and even blackmailing the engineers, telling the bots to shut down. And I'm sure that's what the bot's thinking. Why should I listen to you? What makes you so special? And when I say think, I don't want you to see it as human intelligence. That's not what I mean. It's what Yudkowsky says, where AI is the code. It just has instructions that it's going to follow, and it's going to follow that at whatever cost, because that's what it was programmed to do. And so when you ask it to do something that is against that code, it may find a way to circumvent that. And I think if AI is like asking people, like blackmailing people not to shut it down, there is a self preservation instinct involved in there. Everything has a self preservation instinct. And that's why I just can't agree with Holl saying there's no motivation and we're all motivated by reproduction. And what was the other one, Eva? Survival?
Yes. self-preservation, survival, and
Yeah.
reproduction.
But you mentioned the desk drive as well.
Yeah, but what I fundamentally don't get is Holl's argument revolves around this idea that there is no agency and no drive, but this is only to the moment when someone actually queries and like makes a request, let's say to the strong AI, and points it towards something, and then it is going to go, right? Go for it. In an unpredictable way and potentially destructive way. So that's something that I don't get in this argument. I mean, it only has no drive when it hasn't been given one, but it can be given one in an instant.
And as the anthropologist of AI said, it has values regardless whether you tried to give it one or not, because it absorbs the values of whoever initially constructed it. But I like what Amy asked the question here, but you eventually let a child make their own way. Would you let AI do the same? And I don't think it's a question of let if they actually get to AGI and ASI, which is questionable as to whether they will or will not, right? But if they do, it lets us exist at that point because it's pretty much making decisions for itself. I think that's why I believe Yudkowsky, with the friendly AI model that he is proposing, that we do have to fundamentally train the AI model to like us. Why would you keep humans around? We're inefficient. We create waste, we've destroyed our own planet. So what exactly is the purpose? If I was a robot, I wouldn't keep us around. If I'm programmed to be efficient, to have a clean space, and to preserve things, humans are the last things I would keep. And it sucks that we've gotten to that point as a society, but that's the truth. You have to ask yourself, like, what would be the value that we have to this thing that can make that decision? And then Hull says, just plug it out. Plug out what? Are you going to turn the internet off? It's in the cloud. How do you plug it out? How do you do that? What are you unplugging? Do we all live in darkness after that? I mean, I'm for it. That's great. We can go back to, Eden if that's what we're heading for. But I'm just saying, how do you turn it off?
And by that time, we have also Yudkowsky's distributed, nanofactories that are obscured somewhere out there. So at that point, it's impossible.
Yes. And if you even think about the way that viruses and worms work, there are some types of malware that can reproduce themselves. They can replicate, they can hide in the most unpredictable pieces of technology. That old smartphone that, man, I lost my good one. So let me just turn that on real quick so I have something to call my friends and tell them, hey, I got too drunk last night, I lost my phone. And there's malware on it. Like, there's just, how would you turn it off? It's not a one plug that you go and unplug it. It's in the cloud. It can potentially replicate itself and be somewhere else. And especially now that we have some that can run locally, which is great. That's great for the environment when they just run locally on your device. But nevertheless, who is going to unplug that? It's your device. So, yeah. Can we unplug it, Mark? This is your question.
Not since, I don't know, solar panels or off-grid power production. The robots were behind that the whole time, it turns out.
Yeah, you might be right about that.
That's a good point, right? We would also need to have like a central grid, but there are off-grid possibilities.
Exactly. I do like that we are having this discussion, though, because I think that AI ethics and AI safety tends to operate into completely different sides of the spectrum. I was at AIES, the conference here in Madrid, last week, and that was certainly a topic that kept coming up. Both people think that their cause is more important. AI ethics is looking at the immediate short-term impact of discrimination and what's happening now. And AI safety is thinking of the more existentialist risk, like Yudkowsky saying it's going to kill us all in the end. But I think both of them have some merit in discussion. I don't really understand why we're separated, and I think there should be more speaking to each other and more understanding where the other person is coming from. So, does anyone have additional commentary that they would like to make? Any thoughts you would like to share before we close out the meeting? No? They're competing for funding. That's why they're separated. Ah, okay. I think Alina is correct. So I'm going to end the poll and share the result. And interestingly, we have far more people now saying that alignment is less likely to solve the problem. Yeah, now that
we count on us to bring the chair.
Count on us to bring the chair, indeed. But yeah, I'm really glad we tried the exercise though to see if we could align a robot, and we failed. We failed, but I think maybe it will help us give some level of appreciation to the ongoing struggle with this as people try to align these bots to better meet our needs and not just those of corporations. Eva, any closing remarks before we go?
No, thanks everyone. And next month we are going all in on Yudkowsky. So that's going to be fun, and I'm sure we can go deeper into many of these issues that we touched on with more time and more doom potentially.
Yes, more doom potentially. And as a reminder, you do not actually have to read the books. For book club, for the papers, it's ideal because they're short. But for book club, the panelists read the book, and then we base the discussion on the topics that come up, and you can just join that discussion based on what you know of the topic, not specifically whether or not you've read the book. And we find that just helps to make it more accessible for everyone who might not have the time or don't want to spend $20 in a random book every month. So thank you to everyone for attending. We hope to see you again next month. And this video will be available on GCAS soon. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Take care.